I told you can't trust these. Now Puffy done killed Tupac, man.
For 27 years, one question haunted hip-hop: who killed Tupac? Now, 50 Cent claims he has the answer, and he's pointing directly at Diddy, $1 million bounty, a confession tape, and a documentary that's shattering everything we thought we knew. The documentary that shook hip-hop. You know, there are certain moments in hip-hop history that refuse to fade into the background, certain questions that linger in the air like smoke from a freshly extinguished flame. And for nearly 3 decades, one question has haunted the culture more than any other: who killed Tupac Shakur? Well, according to Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, he finally has the answer, and he's not whispering it in back rooms or hinting at it in interviews. No, he went ahead and made an entire Netflix documentary series about it. In late 2025, 50 Cent's G-Unit Film and Television released a 4-part docu-series titled Sean Combs: The Reckoning. And let me tell you, this wasn't just another true crime documentary. This was a calculated, comprehensive, and absolutely devastating presentation of allegations that point directly at one man, Sean Diddy Combs. And 50 Cent, well, he's never been one to hold back his opinions on the matter. Listen to how he addressed the situation after Keith D's arrest.
I told you can't trust these. Now Puffy done killed Tupac, man.
Puffy's separate, man.
That's 50 Cent in his element, provocative, accusatory, and absolutely relentless in his pursuit of what he believes is the truth. But before we dive into what 50 Cent is actually claiming here, we need to understand the context, because this isn't just some random accusation thrown out into the void. This is the culmination of decades of speculation, years of feuding, and most importantly, it comes at a time when Diddy is already facing federal charges for trafficking and racketeering. The timing, as they say, is everything. The documentary devotes significant attention to Tupac's murder in episode 2, and the core allegation is absolutely explosive. According to the series, Diddy allegedly offered $1 million to eliminate both Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. $1 million. That's the figure that keeps coming up again and again from multiple sources over multiple decades. But here's where it gets really interesting. The documentary doesn't just throw this accusation out there without any supporting material. No, 50 Cent and his production team compiled interviews, archival footage, and what they claim are audio recordings that paint a damning picture of Diddy's alleged involvement. One of the key pieces of evidence presented comes from audio of Dwayne Keith D. Davis's 2009 police interview. In this recording, Keith D. describes Diddy saying words to the effect of having $1 million for anybody who could take care of that problem, referring to Tupac and Suge. The documentary includes clips where Keith D. explains that Diddy allegedly paid through an intermediary named Eric Von Zip Martin, a Harlem drug dealer, who then passed funds to the Crips. Now, to truly understand what we're dealing with here, we need to understand how the hip-hop community has historically viewed beef and conflict, because what happened between Tupac and Biggie wasn't just a typical rap battle. Listen to how 50 Cent himself explains the distinction.
Within hip-hop culture, the terminology beef, it came following Biggie and Tupac. Or there was always battling a part of the culture. What happened to they battling each other? You gotta look back at it.
That's the crucial distinction 50 Cent is making. Real beef, according to him, means you're not waiting around. You're addressing it immediately. And what he's suggesting in his documentary is that someone, namely Diddy, had exactly that kind of passion, that kind of urgency, that willingness to pay $1 million to make a problem disappear permanently. But wait, there's more. The docuseries also presents what are described as unreleased Diddy lyrics from a 1999 track called Muscle Game, with lines about dropping $1 million on someone's head and erasing them and their whole family. 50 Cent juxtaposes these lyrics with Keith D's $1 million claim, suggesting it might be a veiled confession hidden in plain sight within the music. The documentary also features testimony from Kirk Burroughs, a former Bad Boy executive, who makes some startling claims of his own. According to Burroughs, Diddy kept journals that documented tensions with Tupac, and he alleges that Diddy was, in his words, insanely jealous of the friendship developing between Tupac and Biggie. Think about that for a moment, the jealousy angle. It adds an entirely different dimension to this whole situation, because if you believe what Burroughs is saying, this wasn't just about business or the East Coast-West Coast rivalry. This was personal. This was about Diddy allegedly feeling threatened by a bond forming between two of hip-hop's greatest talents. Ice Cube, who lived through this era and witnessed the tensions firsthand, offered his perspective on how the industry dynamics fueled everything.
Then the thing with Bad Boy and Death Row, it kind of just took it over the top. It just made it, because they were the hottest labels. You had the hottest label on the East Coast battling with the hottest label on the West Coast. So that made that undercurrent of animosity that was growing blow all the way up and look like it was a feud.
And that's exactly what the documentary is arguing, that what looked like a coastal feud was actually something far more calculated, far more deliberate, and orchestrated by specific individuals for specific reasons. Speaking of testimony, the documentary includes claims from Reggie Wright Jr., who served as death row security. Wright alleges that Diddy canceled Biggie's UK tour just days before his own 1997 murder, implying that this might suggest foreknowledge or involvement in what the documentary frames as a cycle of retaliation. Now, I want to be absolutely clear here about something important. 50 Cent and Diddy have been feuding for approximately 20 years. Their beef goes back to the mid-2000s, starting with diss tracks and escalating through social media, business rivalries, and public confrontations. So when 50 Cent produces a documentary making these accusations, we have to acknowledge that there's history there. There's personal animosity. Critics argue the documentary is motivated by personal vendetta, and that's a fair point to consider. But here's what's fascinating about this whole situation. The theory that Diddy was involved in Tupac's murder isn't something 50 Cent invented. This has been speculated for decades. What 50 Cent has done is take all these existing theories, all these claims, all these whispered accusations, and compiled them into a coherent narrative backed by what his team presents as evidence. The documentary connects Diddy's current legal troubles to what it suggests is a pattern of alleged criminal behavior stretching all the way back to the 1990s. It's attempting to draw a through line from the violence of the East Coast West Coast era to the more recent scandals that have engulfed Diddy's empire. So what does Diddy say about all of this? Well, Diddy denies everything, calling the allegations fiction. His lawyers have argued that Keith D is fabricating stories for book sales and attention. And it's worth noting that no charges have been filed against Diddy in connection with Tupac's murder, and Vegas police have confirmed he's not a suspect in their investigation. But regardless of what happens legally, the cultural impact of this documentary has been enormous. Netflix reported record streaming numbers, and hip-hop fans across the country, across the world really, have been debating the allegations ever since its release. And this brings us to the real question at the heart of all this. What actually happened on September 7th, 1996? Because to understand why these allegations against Diddy have persisted for so long, we need to go back to that night in Las Vegas. We need to understand who Keith D is, what he claims happened, and why the case remained unsolved for nearly 3 decades. The night everything changed. Let me take you back to September 7th, 1996, Las Vegas, Nevada. The air was electric with anticipation because Mike Tyson was fighting Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand, and seemingly everyone who was anyone in the entertainment industry had descended upon Sin City for the event. Tupac Shakur, at this point arguably the most famous rapper in the world, attended the fight with Marion Suge Knight, the intimidating co-founder of Death Row Records. Tupac was riding high, having released All Eyes on Me, but he was also in the midst of the most intense period of the East Coast-West Coast beef. His relationship with Biggie Smalls had completely deteriorated. His diss track, Hit 'Em Up, had declared war on Bad Boy Records. The tension was palpable. After the Tyson fight, which by the way lasted barely more than a minute with Tyson winning by knockout, something happened in the MGM Grand lobby that would set the night's tragic events into motion. Tupac and his entourage spotted Orlando, Baby Lane Anderson, a member of the Southside Compton Crips. There had been a prior incident involving Anderson allegedly robbing a death row associate, and when Tupac saw him, violence erupted. The assault was captured on surveillance footage. Now here's where Keith D's testimony becomes crucial. Keith D, whose real name is Dwayne Keith Davis, is Orlando Anderson's uncle. He was a high-ranking member of the Southside Compton Crips, and according to his own admissions over the years, in police interviews, in his 2019 memoir Compton Street Legend, and in various media appearances, he was in the white Cadillac that pulled up alongside Tupac's BMW later that night. Let me walk you through what Keith D claims happened, because his testimony forms the backbone of both the criminal case against him and the allegations in 50 Cent's documentary.
We went to eat. We was eating. Man, they came and said, "You just beat up Lane." We was in a hotel, yeah, at the MGM at a restaurant. There was a few New Yorkers though, we went to, like, man, y'all need some help? We got this.
That's what they said?
You guys aren't out in Vegas then with that intention. That's not why you're in
No,
Vegas.
we've been going to the fight since Pat Day.
According to Keith D, after his nephew Orlando was beaten at the MGM, a man named Eric Zip Martin, who allegedly knew about Diddy's bounty on Tupac and Suge, saw an opportunity. Zip allegedly offered Keith D a .40 caliber Glock that he had stashed in his Mercedes.
It was right there. It's a perfect opportunity, baby.
That was Zip talking?
Yeah.
Because of what happened with Wayne.
The plan, according to investigators who have corroborated portions of Keith D's story, was to wait for Tupac at Club 662, a venue where he was expected to perform later that night. Keith D, Orlando Anderson, and several other Crip gang members got into 2 vehicles and drove to the club. They parked in the parking lot, waiting. But Tupac and Suge never showed up at the club as expected. The group waited approximately 15 to 20 minutes before deciding to leave and get liquor. And that's when fate intervened in the most devastating way possible.
They're screaming out his name, Tupac, Tupac.
Like, they're Suge. Like, and then he was like, come on, come go with me. Come go with us. We're going to 662.
And bro, Tupac. And we like, there they go. Made a U-turn. We wasn't supposed to make it. We just wanted a U-turn. They was in the middle lane. We just pulled up on the side, checked every car, see where they was.
So what directed your attention to him? Was some girl shouting at Tupac?
Tupac. He gave himself away. Otherwise, they would have got away.
Shortly after 11:15 p.m., at the intersection of East Flamingo Road and Koval Lane, the white Cadillac pulled up alongside Tupac's black BMW 750IL. Keith D was in the front passenger seat. He had the gun, but the Cadillac pulled up on the wrong side. Keith D was on the left, not in position to shoot across his driver's face.
I gave it to Dre, and Dre was like, no. And Lane's like, give it, pop it.
Orlando Anderson, who's in the right rear passenger, reaches forward and says, give me that motherfucker. Leans over DeAndre Smith out the back window of the Cadillac and began shooting rapidly into the BMW.
So Orlando shot across Dre?
He leaned over on the window, rolled down the window, popped.
Tupac was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. Suge Knight sustained minor injuries from bullet fragments. Tupac was rushed to University Medical Center, where he underwent surgery and was placed on life support. 6 days later, on September 13, 1996, Tupac Shakur died from respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. He was 25 years old. For the next 27 years, no one was charged with his murder. Orlando Anderson, the suspected shooter, was killed in an unrelated gang shootout in Compton on May 29, 1998. He was only 23. The other occupants of the Cadillac also died over the years. Terrence Bubble Up Brown was killed in 2015, and DeAndre Dre Smith died of natural causes in 2004. That left Keith D as the sole surviving suspect from that white Cadillac. And here's the thing about Keith D. He wouldn't stop talking. He gave interviews. He appeared in documentaries. He wrote a book about it. In 2018, he appeared in a BET documentary discussing his involvement. He seemed almost proud of his connection to one of hip-hop's most notorious unsolved crimes. In July 2023, Las Vegas police finally raided a Henderson home tied to Keith D's wife, seizing computers, hard drives, and memorabilia related to Tupac. On September 29, 2023, Keith D was arrested and charged with first-degree murder with a deadly weapon and a gang enhancement. The man who had essentially confessed to being part of the plot for years was finally facing justice. Or was he? In March 2025, Keith D gave his first post-arrest interview from jail to ABC News, and he did something unexpected. He proclaimed his innocence. He claimed that the case was based on lies and suggested he had exaggerated his role in past statements for fame and money. His trial, originally scheduled for 2025, has been delayed multiple times and is now set for August 2026 due to what the defense describes as overwhelming evidence requiring additional review, including over 180,000 pages of documents and terabytes of digital evidence. Meanwhile, Keith D was involved in a jail fight in December 2024 and was subsequently found guilty of battery by a prisoner. He was sentenced to 16 to 40 months in prison for that conviction, complicating his bail prospects even further. As of December 2025, he remains incarcerated, awaiting trial. The legacy of a rivalry. To truly understand why these allegations against Diddy have persisted for so long and why 50 Cent's documentary has resonated so deeply with hip-hop fans, we need to understand the relationship between Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. and the man who many believe drove them apart. Because here's the thing that gets lost in all the coastal beef rhetoric. Tupac and Biggie were friends, genuine friends. Before the diss tracks, before the accusations, before the violence, there was a real connection between two young men who were absolutely brilliant at their craft.
You gotta chance to work with Tupac and Biggie.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Well, it would have been crazier if Pac would have actually been there. Now, with Big, I remember Tracy Waples came and picked me up, scooped me up, and the word was amongst the crew, because we was getting hot. We had some traction.
They first met in 1993 in Los Angeles. Biggie was still an up-and-comer at that point, and Tupac, already established, took him under his wing. They smoked together, shared guns, freestyled together. Tupac even advised Biggie to stick with Puff Daddy, telling him that Puff would make him a star. They performed together at Madison Square Garden. There was genuine love there, but everything changed on November 30th, 1994, at Quad Recording Studios in Manhattan. Tupac arrived to record a verse for Little Sean, a Bad Boy affiliate. In the lobby, he was ambushed, robbed at gunpoint, shot 5 times, and beaten. When Tupac made it upstairs, he found Biggie, Puff, and others. He suspected they knew about the attack, maybe even orchestrated it. He flipped them off as he was stretchered out. That moment destroyed their friendship. Tupac never forgave what he perceived as betrayal. Biggie and Diddy denied any involvement, but the damage was done. What followed was an escalation that would ultimately cost both men their lives. In October 1995, Suge Knight bailed Tupac out of prison for $1.4 million, signing him to Death Row Records. Tupac vowed to destroy Bad Boy. At the 1995 Source Awards, Suge Knight publicly dissed Diddy. The battle lines were drawn. Tupac's Hit 'Em Up in 1996 was perhaps the most vicious diss track in hip-hop history, directly threatening Biggie and Diddy, claiming he slept with Biggie's wife Faith Evans, and mocking everything Bad Boy represented. The beef was no longer about record sales or regional pride. It was personal. It was dangerous. Listen to what Biggie himself said about the situation in what would become his very last interview.
With that situation,
Biggie understood the magnitude of what had happened. He understood that somehow a personal conflict between two artists had metastasized into something that consumed an entire culture. And tragically, he wouldn't live long enough to fix it.
That's a strong dude, yo. I know dude. You know what I'm saying? He's real strong. So when it was like he got shot, I was just more like, again? You know what I'm saying? He always getting shot or shot at. He gonna pull through this one again, make a few records about it, and it's gonna be over. You know what I'm saying? But when he died, I was just like, whoa.
6 months after Tupac's death, on March 9th, 1997, Biggie Smalls was killed in a similar drive-by shooting in Los Angeles after a Soul Train Awards after-party. He was 24 years old. That case also remains officially unsolved. And here's where the conspiracy theories really take root, because some people, and this is a fringe theory that the documentary touches on, have suggested that Diddy might have benefited from both deaths. Tupac's posthumous album sold millions, and Biggie's Life After Death, released just weeks after his murder, went diamond. Dead rappers, it seemed, were worth more than living ones. Now, I want to be clear, there is no credible evidence that Diddy orchestrated Biggie's murder. The official investigation points more towards Suge Knight ordering a retaliation hit for Tupac's death. But the fact that these theories persist speaks to the deep distrust that many in the hip-hop community feel toward industry power structures. Ice Cube offered his perspective on how the whole East Coast-West Coast situation evolved.
There was a weird time, the East Coast versus West Coast was very weird.
Yeah. It was, people equated to Tupac and and Bad Boy and Death Row. But it was actually bubbling before that. It was, to me, an industry thing in a way. Like, New York had the throne for so long, and here go, well, at least a decade or more. And here comes these West Coast rappers, kind of taking attention away.
What Ice Cube is pointing out is crucial. This beef wasn't just about two artists or even two labels. It was about regional identity, about who controlled hip-hop, about money and power and respect. Bad Boy and Death Row just happened to be the hottest labels on each coast, so they became the focal point of tensions that had been building for years.
Tupac being killed, Biggie being killed was just a wake-up call for the whole industry.
That's sad that's how the wake-up call had to go.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
The deaths of Tupac and Biggie did more than end two lives. They fundamentally changed hip-hop. The culture had to reckon with the fact that its biggest stars could be gunned down in the streets. The celebration of violence in lyrics suddenly had real consequences. Method Man, who had the unique experience of working with both Tupac and Biggie during this turbulent period, shared his perspective on navigating these dangerous waters.
So this going on with the East Coast, West Coast.
Okay.
I fly out to Cali that day for Soul Train, like everybody did.
Okay.
Oh, man. Soul Train Awards happening. I get on the plane, I'm in first class. Sure, gets on. He leaving from New York.
That's wild.
And I'm like, well, wow, that's interesting, you know?
You and Suge in first class.
Yes.
From New York to LA.
Method Man described being at a party where both Diddy and Tupac were present and the realization that hit him.
And I mean, it didn't hit me, like, cause you know, we got a force field. This Wu-Tang, we got a force field around us, but I'm by myself. It didn't hit me while I'm in the club, in the House of Blues, till I saw Puff.
Right.
And this ain't a slight against Puff, but it was like, I see Puffy.
Right.
And I see Puffy with like 6 bodyguards. Then it hit me.
And what Tupac told him at that same event is perhaps most revealing of all.
Basically, he was saying, if there's anybody we were on the East Coast, it'd be Wu-Tang.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is letting us know, and anybody that was in the know that it wasn't an East Coast, West Coast thing. It was Bad Boy, Death Row.
That's the key takeaway. From Tupac's own mouth, according to Method Man, this was never really about coasts. It was specifically about Bad Boy versus Death Row. It was personal. So where does all of this leave us now, in late 2025, with 50 Cent's documentary streaming on Netflix and Keith D awaiting trial? In 2024, Tupac's family filed a lawsuit against Diddy, citing Keith D's claims about the alleged $1 million bounty. The family hired investigators to probe potential connections. Prosecutors in Keith D's upcoming trial may use audio from the documentary. The walls, it seems, are closing in from multiple directions. But we have to be honest about what we actually know versus what we suspect. Diddy has never been charged in connection with Tupac's murder. No direct evidence, such as wire transfers, links him to the alleged bounty. It's mostly testimonial, primarily from Keith D, whose credibility is questionable given his changing stories over the years. 50 Cent's documentary is compelling, but as critics have pointed out, it comes from someone with a 20-year grudge against its subject. 50 Cent himself has admitted the documentary is partly personal. What the documentary has done, undeniably, is bring this conversation back to the forefront of the culture. It has forced people to reckon with allegations that have floated around for decades. It has given a platform to voices who claim to have been silenced. Whether those claims will hold up in a court of law remains to be seen. The trial of Keith D in August 2026 may finally provide some definitive answers, or it may simply raise more questions. But one thing is certain, the murders of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls will continue to haunt hip-hop until the full truth is known. And maybe that's the real tragedy here. Two brilliant artists, dead before 30, their legacies forever intertwined with violence and conspiracy theories. A generation of fans who grew up wondering what might have been if Tupac and Biggie had lived, what music they might have made, what reconciliation might have looked like. Instead, we're left with documentaries and trials and endless speculation. We're left with 50 Cent claiming he finally revealed who killed Tupac, and Diddy denying everything, and Keith D changing his story from behind bars. The East Coast-West Coast beef ended because two of its biggest stars were murdered. That's how the peace came. Not through reconciliation, not through dialogue, but through death. And nearly 30 years later, we're still trying to figure out exactly who's responsible. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.